theme installed and activate computer manager widget profiles. Okay, I'm gonna assume we're good there. I'm gonna assume we're good there. Alright, let's get some music on, because your boy spent the morning cuddling his girlfriend and now I am turbo drowsy. Why, JT, is that a bath mat you're doing magic on? Yes, it is, because JT left his close-up pad at a friend's house while he was drunk. So, yeah. Okay. Back at it again at the Krispy Kreme. Kaboom. Oh, hey. Snapchat horror stories. There we go. I recently discovered Snapchat and it's awesome. Oh my god, that's loud.
All of my friends had already reposted these really weird messages saying that a senior had then threatened to shoot up the school. The message by the guy had said, "Mothers will mourn, siblings will cry, fathers will remember. I'm going to kill someone this week. God help me." Then there was a video of him shooting an AR-15. I was understandably totally creeped out. I started calling my mom and dad, crying and begging for them not to make me go to school. Luckily, they said they heard about it and that me and my sister didn't have to go to school. There were about 3 kids that ended up being arrested for the plot of the threat, and nothing actually happened that day. I don't know what happened to the guy who said that, but all I know is that I hope he got the help that he needs. It's really crazy to think about what could have happened if he would have succeeded.
Man, these NanoCon cards feel really good.
I've been trying to have more of a social life. I spend most of my days off from work at home and in bed. To go out, I immediately get overwhelmed and I always have to leave. I've even downloaded a few apps that are strictly for platonic relationships, and because of this interaction, I'll definitely be uninstalling them. It doesn't really take much for me to be friends with someone. I guess I'm really
Definitely need to work on my
look
bottom
past
deal
any
today.
possible red flags if there are any. I met someone that I used to work with in the same building, and we both thought, wow, who would have guessed that we'd cross paths? Then boom, instantly became friends. Let's call him Josh. Josh told me I was pretty during a couple of times during our first interaction, but I brushed it off and I told him that I only wanted a friend, and he seemed to be okay with that. One thing that really stood out to me was how easy it was to talk to him. We talked every day constantly for about a week via Snapchat, and I really enjoyed our conversations. It was enough for me to want to hang out with him. Last night, I got out of work a little earlier than expected, so I thought that I'd go to a bar since it was still happy hour. I had a good day and I really wanted a beer. One beer turned into like 8, and the drunken outgoing, not so socially awkward me came out to play. I pulled out my phone and then started looking through my contact list for anyone to invite. I messaged Josh and sure enough, he was down. He requested an Uber and within about 10 minutes, he showed up. The initial meeting was pretty fine. The alcohol flowing through me made it really easy. He wasn't really interested in doing any drinking, so I closed my tab and I had a really brilliant plan. "Let's freaking go to Walmart," I exclaimed. I don't really know why I wanted to go to Walmart. I just wanted to do something. Josh happily agreed though, so we walked to Walmart. When we got there, Josh had told me that he had to use the bathroom, so while he did that, I walked around the store waiting for him. A lot of time passed, so I decided to message him and ask what's up. Josh then replied with, "I went to the bathroom to jerk off." When I asked him why he told me that and why he told me he had a boner, it was really awkward and he said that he was trying to get rid of it. I don't really know what exactly was going through my head at the time, but I remember muttering, "What the hell?" to myself over and over again. Shortly after, he messaged me a bunch asking me to help him, saying that it was because of me, telling me just how much that he really wanted to screw me, and how he was really close to coming out of the bathroom and kissing me. Just really gross stuff. I
Okay.
started hyperventilating.
So,
My heart literally felt like it was going to jump right out of my chest.
1, 3, 1.
My flight or fight mode then kicked in, and I just started running out of that Walmart. I ran back to the bar I was at and got another beer. I also told the bartender everything that happened just in case he decided to come back. Then I requested an Uber to go home. I'm sober now, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. I actually decided to go back and read our messages, and I was way too freaking nice about it. I just kept saying to him that it's okay, I'm just a bit uncomfortable, and also apologizing afterwards. I decided to text Josh about an hour ago. I wanted to let him know that his behavior was not okay, and that I screenshot the messages. He apparently shops pretty frequently at the store that I work at, so I know that I'll eventually have to face him again, and it really sends shivers down my spine. Just great. When I was 13 years old, my mom had a breakdown and she couldn't work for over a year. This caused us some economic issues, and we lost a lot of things in our house. Our car was the main problem. It broke down and my mom didn't have enough money to get someone to fix it, so all she could really do was get rid of it. Without a car, we all started taking the bus and train pretty much everywhere. Me and my brother took the bus to school, and our school was actually kind enough to get us taxis to drive us home. One day, about 2 or 3 years after my mom's breakdown, I was waiting outside for my taxi to come. The taxi usually comes out about 15 minutes after I end the last lesson, but on that day in particular, it was about 50 minutes late. Then when it finally came, I jumped inside and he drove off. I was a little sour that I had to wait almost an hour, but I didn't really complain since I was really just happy to finally be on my way home. Now, since I took the taxi home pretty much every single day of school, I had started recognizing the drivers. The driver on that day was pretty new. I had never seen him before. He had a full beard and an AC/DC cap on. The first thing he did after he drove off was apologizing for being so late. I told him it was okay, and he started up a conversation. He asked me if I wanted him to put on some music, and I said sure. I discovered quite quickly that he actually had the same taste of music as me, so I felt right at home. No real worries at all yet. About a week or so later, I was waiting outside for the taxi. I realized the taxi was then late yet again, and a thought came to my mind that maybe it was that driver. He had become my favorite driver since he had been so friendly and really talkative, but I hadn't really seen him since that one time. And just as quick as that thought came to my mind, the taxi arrived, and surprise, surprise, it was him. I decided to sit at the front this time for some reason, and we started up a new conversation. I remember his phone's notification tone. I thought it was funny, so I laughed a little, and that started up a new conversation about how he found himself to be funnier than most guys out there. He asked me if I agreed, and that's when all of the red flags started going off. However, I decided to shake it off. Everyone says weird things sometimes. It's okay, right? After a bit of talking, he then asked me about my age. Really just viewing it as an innocent question, I then answered him that I had just turned 15. He pulled out a piece of paper as well as a pen, and then he asked me a question.
Do you have Snapchat?
I kind of got silent for a while. The alarm bells were wailing like crazy, and I just knew this was wrong. He was like 30 years old, and I was 15, and he was my taxi driver. Why would I want to talk to my taxi driver on my spare time? I was so scared to turn him down, though. I really didn't know what he would do if I turned him down. It's not like he was forcing it on me or that he was trying to be intimidating, but I just didn't trust that it would turn out all right if I turned him down. So I said yes, and then I wrote my username on the paper. When I finally came home that afternoon, I felt really guilty about it. It just didn't feel right. I got into the house, got into my room, then sat down on my bed with my phone right in front of me and just stared at it. I was really terrified that he was going to add me and then start talking, but also that I'd misspelled my username and that he would probably question me about it the next time he picked me up. And then after about 10 minutes, I got a notification. He added me. He had sent me a hey. I tried pulling myself together and then started chatting with him. Now at first, it was pretty innocent. Then of course, it started getting weird. For everything I said, he would come up with a way to compliment me or try and be flirty. Example, so where do you live? I asked. Since he knew where I lived, I thought it wouldn't really be a big deal to ask where he
two
lived.
up the chain.
I live in a small town right outside of yours. Why? Do you want to come visit sometime?
He said, what do you do in your spare time?
I like to go fishing. It's a guilty pleasure of mine.
Oh wow, I've always wanted to try that out.
Maybe we can do it together sometime.
And then came the creepiest question. I had started catching on what he was after, so I then started to question him about it. Why did you even add me?
What? I thought you liked older men.
Yeah, it was creepy, and no, I didn't like older men. He had apparently thought that since I liked having a conversation with him, that I liked him or something. So the very next day afterwards, I was absolutely terrified that he was gonna pick me up. I thought about blocking him or telling him to stop talking to me. But I was only a 15-year-old girl, and he was a big 30-year-old grown man. What if he got mad at me? God knows what he would do to me the next time he picked me up if he was in a sour mood. To my absolute relief, the taxi that picked me up that day was a different driver, and as quick as I got inside, I told him what happened. I had asked him to tell his boss or whatever to maybe reassign him so that I wouldn't have to see him. But luckily the boss was a lot smarter than that. The next day afterwards, the driver had told me that the man was fired and he was never going to drive another taxi for the rest of his life. I really hope that's true. Apparently he had been preying on a lot of other young girls too, but none of them had spoken out about it. I blocked him on Snapchat, and I haven't seen or heard from him since. Thank the Lord.
A couple years ago, when I was 15, I was really big into Snapchat. I was kind of obsessed with building my Snap score, so I would add random friends and accept random requests to do so. It was pretty weird, I know, but being that young, my Snap score was a number that mattered to me for whatever reason. Now, a lot of my friends from school and I have this group chat. I remember it was a Saturday, and one of them mentioned we should go to the mall. A lot of them agreed, and I wanted to as well, but realized I didn't have a ride. So I posted it on my story if anyone was able to pick me up and take me. I was more so expecting someone I knew to respond, like my cousin or something. But I got a Snapchat back from this guy I'd never talked to before. Or at least his Bitmoji was a guy. But either way, I didn't know who it was.
C2,
He said he was my friend on
C3,
Snapchat.
C4,
We had never had a single
C5,
conversation, or even shared any pictures back and forth before. He texted me something about how he was bored and had nothing better to do. I remember responding to him, asking if he even lived in the same state. It turns out he did, but the town he said he lived in was at least a 2-hour drive from me. I told him not to worry about it, and I didn't want him to drive 2 hours just to take me to the mall. But he quickly responded saying why not. At this point, the whole conversation felt off to me, but he insisted. I finally ended up agreeing. I told him he could come pick me up, but only if he was willing to send me a picture of himself. I was just trying to be cautious. A couple minutes later, he sent me a snap. I opened it, just to see some 30-year-old guy looking back at me. The guy had on a really dirty hat, smiling at the camera, though like half of his teeth were missing. The caption on the snap said he was on his way. I sat there for a second, thinking it over in my head. How did the guy know where to pick me up? He didn't even ask for my address. That's when my heart dropped, realizing I had my Snap map on, meaning that anyone I had as a friend on the app could easily find my address. I panicked and quickly responded to the guy, apologizing, saying I actually had a closer friend willing to take me. Now, obviously that wasn't true, but the fact that this guy was willing to drive 2 hours to pick someone up he had never even met before, just from their location on the Snap map alone, gave me an off vibe. Plus, the guy looked insanely creepy.
C2, C3,
Not someone I'd feel
C4,
comfortable being
C5, C6, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6,
As
C1.
far as I know, he never showed up. live in a cul-de-sac, and usually we wouldn't get any cars passing by our house. But I swear, for at least the next few days, there was this same black SUV that would constantly drive by. Whether that was related or not, I don't know. Though, about a month later, I was on Facebook scrolling through my feed.
C2,
Past a
C3,
news story
C4,
that had one of those attachments meaning it was sourced on a different website. I almost always scroll past those things, but I couldn't help but stop at this one. There, on my Facebook feed, I could clearly see a picture of that guy from Snapchat. There was no doubt in my mind it was the same guy. The headline of the news story read that he was arrested for attempted murder. This whole experience makes me think I dodged a major bullet by trusting my gut and not accepting a ride from the guy. The whole situation shook me up for a while, and nowadays I try to be a lot smarter and only allow people I trust to see me on the snap map.
C2, C3, C4, C5, C6.
I'm a female,
C1,
and when I was a
C2.
sophomore in high school, I took a lot of different classes. One of them I don't think I'll ever forget. It was a history class, and the regular teacher for the class had another job on top of teaching. And because of this, we would often get a substitute teacher for the class. It was always the same guy. I would say he was at least in his mid-50s. Nothing ever struck me as odd about him, since, if I'm being honest, I rarely even ever paid attention in that class. That was until one day. I was in the middle of working on a project he assigned.
3130.
Every time I looked up from my paper, he was just staring at me. Every time I would look at him, he wouldn't even break eye contact and try to play it off either. One of the times I looked up, I noticed he had his phone pointed in my direction. It looked like he was taking pictures of me. I, of course, was creeped out, but didn't say anything in case I was wrong. Anyway, a few weeks later, somehow, which I still don't know how to this day, the guy found my Snapchat username and added me. I knew it was him too, as he had his full name on the account.
C5, C6, C1, C2,
But I still regret the decision I made.
C5,
He had
C6,
an influence on
C1.
my grade. I ended up adding him back. A few minutes later, he sent me a snap saying, "Hey." He had his face in it and everything. At this point, I knew something wasn't right. I took a screenshot of the snap and left him on red. He quickly followed up with another snap, this time a black screen with a question mark as the caption. Again, left him on red and forgot about the whole situation.
C5, C6,
For the next few
C1,
weeks, there were multiple occasions where I would check the snap map just to see him not far away.
C5,
This would happen anywhere too, not just at school. I would be at the mall with my friends, for example, and see he just so happened to be at the same mall. Or even sometimes at school, when I knew for a fact he didn't work that day. Overall, for a solid month, nothing but those supposed coincidences took place regarding the whole situation. But of course, a few days later, I would get a random message from him. I could tell it was a chat this time, and not a regular snap.
C2, C3,
I opened it, and I was
C4,
absolutely
C5,
horrified.
C6,
He sent
C1,
around 50
C2,
pictures of me in pretty much any situation.
C5, C6,
Some
C1.
were of me at school, but others confirming my suspicion.
Hi, friend.
about
I'm
following
grateful
me
for your
on
live videos. Aw, I'm grateful for you,
the
Kala.
school campus.
I need to record another color change today. I did post the first one.
Everything and blocked him. I instantly told my parents, and they notified both the school and the police.
That was the paintbrush change, yeah?
It's been 2 years since the situation.
So for anybody curious, let's
Ever since
do
he
a
sent
trick with the
pictures,
paintbrush
I've never
change.
seen him again.
6 of hearts goes in the middle, never to be seen again.
As we actually got another substitute teacher.
Take the
which
top
was
card
nice.
here, which is the 4 of
Overall,
clubs,
the whole situation
and the
was
7
really
of clubs, and if we just
The
run
fact that
this
I'd seen
over it,
following me around
turns into
and
our
seen
card
him
that was in the
repeatedly
middle,
just
the
based
6
on
of
my location
hearts.
on the snap map for a good month of my life absolutely terrifies me. I used
Eventually, we
Snapchat
will learn
shortly after
another
that
version of that
experience.
called the silky
Like I
change.
said, I haven't seen the guy since, so I'm not entirely sure whatever ended up happening to him.
So there's the queen, there's the 4. We're just gonna get a little rub here on this card. One
This
more,
happened
and we
about
can get it
2
to
or 3
change from the
years
4
ago
to the
when
3.
I was still a minor and in high school. I was
That was a pretty
walking
bad
home
color
alone,
change. Just try that
and
again.
I think it was starting to get close to daylight savings.
Pay attention today.
It was
Yay!
around 5
Alright, so
p.m.
there's the
and
6
it
of
was starting to get
spades,
dark.
the 10 of
I was
diamonds.
making my way past downtown since I live nearby.
We just rub the 10, we
My
can
high
turn it
school is
into
in the dead
another
center of
6.
downtown, so most people
Oh,
have
whoop.
to either drive or walk through it to
And
get
then
back
don't
to the
flash that.
neighborhoods. So as I was walking back,
My brain
I
is
was
often
minding
mud
my
from
own
work.
business and
Yeah, I know
started
you work
listening
a
to
shit
a
ton.
podcast.
And I'm
I
sorry.
think that I might have been
I hope
crossing a street or a
I can teach you
stoplight
some things
when
that'll
I
help
didn't
you, like,
realize that
fidget,
whatever I was listening
just
to,
like help you get
this
past the
weird
mud.
guy kind of shoots me a weird look.
Let's do 4
I
and 2.
ignored it and just kept walking down the street, assuming that he wasn't going to bother me
Number's
since
gonna
he seemed to be going in a
1,
different
3,
direction
1,
than me.
0.
I was about 2 blocks down when I see the same guy now jogging up to me, and I was really put off by him since he was some older guy, maybe in his 30s.
Hey girl, I just ran a mile to come talk to you.
I kind of just rolled my eyes at him and then said, "You ran like 2 blocks."
I guess I was just exaggerating. Anyways, I just wanted to tell you that you're the most beautiful girl I've
C2,
ever seen.
C3,
How old are
C4, C5, C6.
I'm a minor.
C1,
Well,
C2,
this didn't stop
C3,
it.
C4, C5,
Oh, so you're
C6,
younger.
C1.
I really dig that in a relationship.
I'll
At this
eventually
point,
teach
I
like
really
the
wanted to
Charlier
tell him to
cut,
screw
stuff like
off,
this, just like some
but there was
fidget moves.
nobody around since
These
I
are what
was
I
on the
find
way
like
downtown
are almost
and was
meditation to
starting
me.
turn to apartments.
Just sitting around doing these.
I just asked him what he wanted so that I could leave, and he asked me for my number. I felt like it was the safest option to give him what he wanted, but instead I punched in my Snapchat. He let me leave after this, and we both went on our ways. At this point, I thought that he would maybe only shoot me about 2 or 3 messages and then give up.
Okay.
Not even 2 hours later, this dude
C2,
actually messages me
C3,
about 3
C4,
times asking me to take me out to a
C5,
bar and drink, and I then
C2,
felt disgust
C3,
boil up inside of
C4,
me.
C5, C6,
I reminded him
C1.
that I'm a minor and that I couldn't really do that. He continued to say some pretty nasty things to me, telling me I was hot and how he wanted to mess around with me. I was starting to get really pissed off, but instead of blocking his number, I really wanted to give him a piece of my mind. So I told him he was gross and that he shouldn't even be talking to me since I was a minor,
C4,
and the fact that he was
C5,
preying on
C6,
younger girls was
C1,
really nasty.
C2, C3,
Then he said,
C4, C5,
Oh, damn.
C6, C1.
I really love that you're so fiery and sassy. I hope our babies are just like that in the future.
What is seat?
You're gonna be a really
Okay,
great
so
mother to my kids.
I'll show you.
Let me pick you up from your high school so we can mess around.
My skin ran cold at this remark, and I
Alright, so I'm
instantly
gonna have my
blocked
cards
Snapchat.
face up here. So the dealer
I
is seat
never
1,
actually told him that
to
I
his
was either
left
in
is
high
seat
school or
2,
what high
seat 3,
school I
seat
was
4,
going
seat
to.
5, and so on.
For a
So when I
while,
roll the
I
dice,
always
the
made
highest
sure
number
not to
tells me
walk
how
the
many
same
players
way
total
home,
we have.
and I
In this
always
case it
watched
is
out for
6.
him, but I never saw him
And then
before.
from there I get to choose
Thankfully, he
what
left
the other
me
2
alone.
seats are.
I'm guessing
So
he's
say I
gonna
take
prey on
seat
some
4
other
and 1.
young girls.
This tells me that I'm going,
I really just
my
wanna
sucker
warn
is going to
other
be
young
at seat
girls of this
4,
predatory
and
behavior.
that seat 1 is
If you
going
think
to
you're
be
in
the winner.
danger or that someone might come on to you,
So,
always make sure you
King,
have
King,
some
Ace,
form of
Ace.
self-defense.
And this is called hot stacking,
If there's
meaning
no
you
way
take
out
the
of the
cards
situation,
from the seat, from
try
the
to
game
resolve
before
your
you
shit
deal.
and get out
It's
of
all the
there as
cards that are
quickly as
face up after the
possible.
hand. Put those on top. Our first shuffle is the prep
Before
shuffle.
anyone asks me why I have a stranger on my Snapchat in the first place,
What this does
I'm going to clarify
is it puts
that
the
whenever
cards
people
in
add
dealing
me,
order.
whether it's from
So
on
the king will hit
Instagram or
first,
just
followed by the
Twitter,
ace, followed by the king, followed
I
by the
always
ace.
add them back. However,
So
I don't
we do
remember
the math,
adding this guy
and in
back.
this particular case, my
So
stack is
basically,
going to
it
be,
started yesterday when me and my
so your
cousins
stack
were
is always
celebrating
4
a party
numbers.
around 10 p.m.
And in this case, it's just going to be 2,
We were
2,
sitting
2,
in my
2,
living
all the
room
way
for
up the
a while,
chain.
just watching Netflix,
So the
and
bottom
nothing
number
seemed
will
to
go
be
under
very
3
good
cards in
at
the
the
left
time.
hand.
At
So
one
I
point,
slip them.
jokingly
So I'm going
said
to
my
put 2
cousin,
cards under
"Look
3,
behind you,"
which I just did.
because we really like to mess with each other like that.
So
However, this time
There
she was
is-
pretty sure that she actually saw something in the window actually
so
move
there's the
behind
3
her.
cards in the left hand. There's
Not
the 2
really
cards I
thinking
put
anything
under.
of it, I just figured she was trying to scare
There.
me back, and pretty much just forgot about it.
So then I'm going to put 2
That
cards
was
under
until
2.
Out of nowhere, my dog jumped up, ran to the front door, and then started barking really aggressively.
So there's the 2 cards. There's the
We
2
kept
cards I
trying
just
to yell
added.
at her, trying to get her to stop, but
Then the
she
2
didn't leave
before
me
there.
alone for at least another 3 minutes.
And then I'm going to put 2 under
I
1.
thought that maybe she
and then
could've
2
just
on
heard the
top.
noise from the TV or something that scared her. But the movie we were watching had ended like 30 minutes ago.
So here we are.
And we were both just
2,
sitting in
2,
silence on our phones.
2, 2.
Keep in mind,
2.
all of this happened around 12 a.m.
And then just for shits and
After
grins,
this happened,
I do a
was
fake
kind of
shuffle,
nervous and
and
pretty
I do a fake
confused.
cut.
But my dog had done this a few times before.
So we're still in the
So
same
once
setup.
again, I just tried to ignore it and not really think too much about it. It was now around 1 a.m.
If you're curious, I can also show you how to beat a player cut.
Start getting ready for bed.
So here is, I want
I was
C4 to be
laying
my
down
sucker, and I want
checking
C1 to
my
get the aces.
Snapchat
So
when
there's
I decided to
C2,
open
C3,
Snapchats.
C4 gets the king,
Then I saw
C5, C6, C1 gets
someone
the
was at my
ace,
house with me.
C2, C3,
I
C4
started
gets the
thinking of
king,
all of the different
C5,
possibilities
C6,
of who would
C1
be
gets
that
the
close
ace.
to me. This guy's
Aw.
name was Sebastian.
So that
At
is
this point, I was
phase
really
1
confused and
of
starting to
riffle
get
stack
worried
exercise.
because I don't even know a Sebastian.
For phase
And
2,
like I stated at the very beginning of this
you
story,
take the aces, they go
I
on the
don't
bottom,
even remember adding
the
back a
kings go on
Sebastian.
top. Now I have to
I
stack for
decided
just
to
the
go back
kings.
downstairs to check
So I'm going
and
to
make
put
sure
4
that
under the top card, and then I'm going to put 2
in my
on top
house,
of the
we
top
have an
card.
alarm system
There's
where
4
every time
under,
you open a door, it will chime to let you know.
there's 2 on top.
For some reason, though, it was unplugged.
So
Meaning
there's
if any
2,
of the doors were being
then
opened,
4,
whether
then
it
the
was
other
a
king.
shed door, backyard gate, or
And then the
just
ace is
any
still
other
on the
door
bottom.
leading to my house, no one in our house would be notified.
So
I had asked
C2,
my cousin if she
C3,
was the one that
C4
unplugged it,
naturally
and
gets
she
the
didn't
king,
even know we had it.
C5, C6, I
I
have
was
to bottom
genuinely
deal the ace
worried
to
now,
myself,
because when I checked the snap
C2,
map, it
C3,
said that it was
C4
last
naturally
seen
gets the
an hour
king,
ago.
C5,
And
C6,
that
then I
very
bottom
same
deal the
hour
ace to
ago was
myself.
the same exact time when my dog started viciously barking at the front door for
Phase
no
3.
reason. The more that I thought about everything, the more that it
Everything
seemed
goes on the
connected,
bottom.
but there was really
I
nothing
require no
could do,
shuffles.
as I had already checked downstairs and already locked all of the doors.
C2, C3,
I
bottom deal
actually
the
do
king,
have multiple cameras around my
C4,
house.
sorry,
And
C5,
I decided I would just check
C6,
them in the morning
bottom deal
because
the
I needed
ace,
to get the
C2,
password from my mom
C3,
anyway.
bottom deal the king, 5,
It's currently
6,
the
bottom deal
afternoon
the
now,
ace.
and I'm still waiting to check the cameras, but nothing really weird has happened since last night. Although when I last
I also
checked
have
Snap
another
Maps,
riffle stack
it said
exercise
that
I
it was
do,
last
which if
seen
you're
only
curious, I'll
10
show
days
you.
ago, and still at my house.
I'll do another one face up just
I
for
did
the
send him a
lulz.
chat and then said, "Who are you?" And he just replied back with,
So here we're going to have
Who
a
am I?
5-handed game,
Who are you?
so I did.
and we're going to make seat number 5 our
His
sucker,
Snapchat score is
and we're going to make seat
28,000,
number 2,
so it isn't really
sorry, seat
likely
number
that this is
2
a
will be
fake
the
account.
sucker, seat number
I
5 will
won't
be
know
my
anything
confederate.
else until I check the cameras. But if I
So
can't
my
find
stack here
anything,
is going to
I'll
be
definitely insert pictures and screenshots
2,
of
1,
the
2,
chat
0.
snap map if necessary.
So here's our prep shuffle.
I'm not really sure what to do because I don't really have any proof that I could bring to the cops.
So my stack is 2, 1, 2, 0. So
Just
first thing I'm
really
going to do is
seems
going to
like
put 2
everything's
cards in the
just
right
some
hand under
weird
3 cards in the
coincidence,
left, and I'm not going to
really
mess it up.
freaked out at being at my house now. But like I
Oh,
said,
yeah, I am.
I'll let you know if I find anything. Alright,
that?
guys.
Then
so
I'm
I
going to
have
put 1
an
card
idea.
under 2.
Okay, so today is literally
Then I'm going to
been
put 2
crazy.
cards under the top card.
Me and my cousin both have been really freaked out. I'll start with
And then
last
fake
night.
shuffle, fake cut just for
Me
the
and my
lulz.
cousin had been hearing some really strange things all night long. I even thought that I heard people talking
So,
outside my house around
see
2
here?
a.m.
My stack was
Also,
0,
for
2,
everyone
1,
that keeps
2,
telling me to call the
0 on
police,
top,
we actually
2,
did that today.
1.
But the reason we didn't
2.
do it last night or the night before is because at the time we thought that we were just being
So
paranoid.
C2, the sucker,
That is until
naturally
now.
gets the king. C3,
Sebastian wasn't
C4,
on the snap map
C5,
at all
C1,
last night,
C2,
so we both
C3,
figured that he
C4,
wouldn't be anywhere
C5,
near us,
C1.
and like I
My
said,
confederate
we were
winds
just
up with the
getting
aces.
paranoid. However, we were really wrong. We finally got the password to check the cameras, and fortunately,
So
we
if we're
didn't
just
really
stacking the
find
kings
anything
here, all I
that
want
night.
to do is put 3 under the top card.
Then we checked the footage that was from last night around 2 a.m. The camera
C2,
picked up the
C3,
figure, and I have
C4,
multiple pictures you guys can
C5
look
gets
at.
the bottom deal.
The figure looks white,
So
but
on
I
and
think
so
it was
forth.
actually all black, and the camera inverted it. But I don't really know. Here's some of the photos
Now
and
everything on the
screenshots of when
bottom.
I first noticed that he was on the map. Anyway, for those of you who kept telling us to call the police, we did. They came this morning and they checked the footage. They also looked around our house just to make sure that nobody was still lurking around.
Nope, that's a hanger.
They said that they would patrol around our neighborhood when it got dark for the next few nights. They made a report on the man trespassing, and we gave them as much information as we could, and hopefully they can find him. We both feel a little bit better now, but it's really unnerving to know that somebody was actually lurking around our house last night.
I
Neither
wonder.
one of us can figure out what he was doing or trying to do. He looked like he was just walking around, but like I said, we really have no clue what he wanted.
If I put
Anyway,
everything on top.
sorry for not updating sooner, but I couldn't get into the camera footage
So
sooner,
king,
and I was really just
bottom,
worried and didn't really
bottom,
want to think too much
ace,
about it.
bottom, king,
Also,
bottom,
I've been trying to
bottom,
answer your questions.
ace.
So to all of you that keep telling me to turn off my Snapchat map of myself, well, it was never on. I have no idea how he got my address in the first
That's
place,
fun.
or even
Might
if
add
he
that
knew
as a
it was
4th
my
phase.
house. And I definitely don't know anyone named Sebastian. This entire ordeal has been very stressful and scary
Okay,
for
so
me
phase
and my
4.
cousin and the rest of my family.
King,
I'm still very
bottom,
shaken up and really
bottom,
worried that he may
ace,
return with worse
bottom,
intentions.
king,
But I
bottom,
really hope that
bottom,
doesn't happen.
ace, bottom.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I was working nights
second,
at the time, so me and
ace,
my husband ended up having
there,
the whole night to ourselves.
bottom,
Needless to say, I was in something of a
Bottom.
chipper mood by the time I got to work. It was around 3:30 in the morning, and I was sitting in my pod telling my coworkers how my husband had gotten me a spa day. The last thing I hear before the phone rings is one of them say, "Bring back some face masks so we can pamper ourselves in the dispatch center." The thought of us doing our jobs with mud masks on made me laugh out loud, and I had to calm myself a little before picking up the call. That's the thing about working dispatch. Your shift goes from 1 to 100 with some calls. You're just sitting there, minding your own business, and the emergency...
So it'll be
decides to
six-handed. The
Jesus
sucker will be at
Christ.
seat 3. My confederate will be at seat 4.
I opened with the usual...
Excuse me. My stack here is 0401.
A soft, whispered female voice couldn't have been any older than a teenager say, "I can't do this anymore. Please
So there's our
help."
prep shuffle.
Right when I asked where she
So
was at,
I have 0, so I'm just going to start with
Male
4 under
and
2.
then a banging sound as if someone is trying to break into the room this girl is in. I dispatch a nearby unit of cops as quickly as I can, telling them it's potential
Shoot,
for
I got
domestic
distracted.
violence situation.
040 and then 1 on
In a way,
top.
It was potential domestic,
There we go.
but in others,
Hold on.
much worse. This girl was 13 years old, not much older than my son is now, and she had a gun to her head. It was her father on the other side of the door, and he was indeed trying his darndest to break it down. But it wasn't her fault. It was to stop his daughter from shooting herself. I joined him, pleading with the girl in as calm and calculated a way as possible to
Alright.
put the gun down. But all she did
Seat
was
2,
to say
seat
again,
3, seat 4, seat 5, seat 6, seat 1,
before she pulled the trigger.
seat 2, seat 3, seat 4,
I'll never
seat
forget the
5,
bang.
seat 6, seat
Her
1.
screaming on the line as her father finally broke the door in, and the sound of him screaming how sorry he was. That shrill, empty, hollow
So it's going to be 4 and 1 for
shriek
stacking
will
the
forever be burned
kings.
in my memory.
If you're curious about how
Probably
I
one
do
of
the
saddest
math
moments of
for
my
the
entire
stack,
life.
let me know and I'll explain.
I had to keep it together and keep working.
Seat 2, seat 3, seat
Please
4,
pick it up, I
seat
guess.
5, seat 6, seat
I need
1,
to walk
seat
you
2,
through
seat
CPR, sir.
4,
Please pick up the
seat
phone.
5, seat 6.
Deputies are coming. Paramedics are coming. Please pick up the phone. No one picked up the phone. I don't think he could hear me over his own screams. I stayed on the open line, calling out to someone to pick up, but
Seat 2,
there was a
seat
weird
3,
noise
seat
before the
4,
screaming
seat
sounded
5,
further
seat
away,
6.
almost like the phone had been tossed to one side. As the paramedics and deputies finally arrived on the scene, they called it. There wasn't a surgeon in the world that could have saved that girl's life. The contents of her skull were spread all over her bedroom wall.
Let's try that again, but
Signal
slower.
7. That was her name now. Death investigation. As I disconnected the call, I remember my upcoming spa just popping into my head. Like a weird, now where was I moment. I guess that's just how we compartmentalize things. It occurred to me that that little girl would never have a spa trip anniversary present from her husband, and how tragic that was. A dumb, self-centered thought, I know, but it was just how my mind opted to process the horror of what I'd just been exposed to. I didn't cry until I drove home. A full hour's drive of just non-stop, ugly sobbing. Pulling into my driveway, I wiped my face, went into my kids' room and hugged them. They started crying too, confused and frightened as to why I was so upset. I guess that wasn't quite the right call, but I just couldn't help it. It was just something I needed to do. A good number of years had passed since I got that call, and it definitely wasn't the last time that I had to deal with something like that. Trouble is, they never get any easier. You just learn to deal with the fallout better. They just keep on going and keep answering those calls. Dispatch is a crazy job to say the very least. One call you're talking to a toddler who's just had a nightmare, but doesn't want to wake up his mom or dad. The next minute you're listening to someone taking their last breath. I even got a call from someone reporting Taco Bell for getting their order wrong. Dispatchers get threats, they get screamed at, they get called every curse word ever conceived. But we keep going. We keep answering those calls. We lose coworkers that take their own lives every single year. The stress of the job is extremely high, and there's very little in the way of closure for those that need
What are you listening to? I listen to creepypastas while I do this if I'm not feeling music. I don't know why. I'm a really upbeat person, but I like creepypastas. I'm lame.
During my final year of EMS dispatch, and honestly,
I don't know, they're just calming. Normally the people that read them have super soothing voices.
I get a call from a frantic woman.
Alright, we're going to be six-handed. My Confederates at seat 3. I'm sorry, my Confederates at seat 5. Our sucker's going to be seat 3. So our stack here is going to be 1, 3, 1, 1. So here's our prep shuffle.
I ask where exactly in the apartment she is, and she says the door frame between the kitchen and the hallway. I ask if it would be possible to gently lower her
So
frame,
there's 1 under 3.
the kitchen and
Here's
down
3
the
under
back.
2.
She says she
Then I need
thinks
1
so.
and 1, which I'll just
I
do in
count
one
them.
go. So I'm holding 2 here. There's that, there's that. That gets me both of those.
One, go.
So
I hear her grunt a little as she lowers
fake
the body.
shuffle.
Then cutlery jingling together as she
Fake
grabs
cut.
a knife, and finally, the thud of her roommate's body hitting the floor as
So
she succeeded
there's
in
our
turning
stack.
the
1, 1,
Okay,
3,
I cut her
1.
down, she says after grabbing the phone again. I tell her the EMTs
Seat 2,
are
seat
on their
3,
way.
seat 4, seat 5,
Then I
seat
finally
6,
just
seat
ask her
1,
how
seat
long
2,
the
seat
friend
3,
had
seat
been.
4, seat 5,
She
seat
tells me
6,
she has
seat
no
1.
idea, but she's been working all day. I tell her to begin CPR if she knows it. which
On
she
to
does.
phase 2.
And after a
For
few
this,
cycles
it's
of
going to be
chest
4 and
compressions
1.
knocked them out. She picks up the
So
phone.
there's
and
4. Oh, I didn't put the king's face up. Oh well.
I tell her to keep going and that it's essential.
And if you're wondering how to beat a player cut, so the
That's
player
amazing.
always has to cut towards the
She's
dealer.
cold. She's
Dealer
so cold.
completes the cut. Come back over
I
here,
hesitate to
square the deck,
compose myself.
and you just beat the cut.
Those words hit me like a ton of bricks for some reason. I dealt with worse calls than that. Straight up triple murders, assaults, all that, but hearing this girl tell me how cold her friend was just tore me up. Just over a year later, I retired. I don't regret my career at dispatch, and I know I made a difference out there. But there's only so much one person can take. And there's that call among a handful of others that just push me over the edge. I'm a former chief of police in Glenwood, Florida. A call began like this, like any other. 911 to your emergency. A woman is screaming frantically, saying, "An alligator ate part of my baby." My dispatchers tried their best to get some straight answers out of her, but even when she stopped screaming down the phone, all she'll say is, "We were just walking along the sidewalk, and out of nowhere, an alligator jumped out of the water and ate part of my baby." Living in Florida, this was entirely possible, and we had all prepared for the worst possible outcome. Police arrived on scene, then the fire department, and an ambulance not far away. The fire department medic was the first to arrive. And
This
he
podcast
raised
makes me
his
fall
hand
asleep.
to
Oh
the
god, it really is.
Of course, the first thought was the
Try to
child.
delicately tell him. Oh man, just tell him. Seth is the coolest dude ever. Have you ever gotten to meet Seth?
Said animal control was needed. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, this poor woman, what a terrible thing to happen.
Seat 2,
Then
seat...
out of nowhere,
Oh shoot.
I hear something over the radio like,
Oh man, did I get my
Is that a
stack
leash?
wrong? Because I still got
there
the
was a
aces.
leash hanging out of the
Oh wait, my whole...
alligator's mouth.
Oh, this is my whole
The
bottom deal
baby
set up. Derp, derp, derp,
the
derp, derp.
woman had been referring to wasn't a human baby at all. It was a freaking dog. It's something we laugh about now, but after all the horror and fear over this fictional poor kid's life, we were straight up angry when we found out.
Seat
It
2.
didn't help that the woman complained that no one would
Extend
take
your
her to the
fingers. God
hospital
dang it.
or take what was left of her dog.
3,
So it wasn't
4,
much.
seat 5, seat 6. What the shit?
All I
What
can
is going
say
on here
is,
with this? Okay,
thank
we're
God,
redoing
though,
this.
humans were
Maybe I just assembled this all wrong.
Believe me,
At that
we
convention in
would
DC?
laugh at the
Okay.
dog, sure.
Well, if you're ever down around Tulsa, let me know and I will
The
arrange,
dog running
like to
around near the river's
hang out and
edge
like
in the
get to
Sunshine
chill with him
State.
for a bit.
You didn't bring your dog for a walk.
Okay,
You brought it as an appetizer.
so we're at 4. No, not 3. 4 under 1, and then 1 on top.
As a dispatcher, I had a call come in from a woman who was screaming that someone
Okay.
in the house was being
And so
attacked.
there it is. I'm gonna turn that
We knew
6
it was
face
serious
up.
as screams
so
could
you
be heard
can
in the background,
see,
as well
but
as a man yelling and cursing.
Player cuts. You take.
Dispatch was quickly able to determine
and then
the
you beat the
location
cut.
and had cars en route. The dispatcher attempted to
Seat
keep the
2,
caller
seat
in line,
3,
but the attacker
seat
was
4,
gone.
seat 5, seat
He
6,
found her on
seat
the phone
1.
and began stabbing her.
Yeah, no, he is legit the nicest human being.
Help, he's killing me. Before she dropped the phone. He could
Aww.
be heard in the background yelling at his victim as he went about his
No,
mysterious
Seth's the
pursuit.
champ.
The accused in the
He and
matter was
Dillahunt are two of my favorite people from my time in the atheist thing.
He returned to the home and was banned
Seat
from entering.
3, seat. Oh, sorry, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, seat 5, seat 6, seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, seat 5, seat 6, seat
The
1.
stab wounds were described as being superficial
Oof.
and non-life-threatening. The officers could be heard arriving at the
His
scene
wife is
when
actually
two
religious. I
were
mean, not,
dispatched,
you know,
but it was
right-wing
too late
religious,
for
but
this
yeah.
domestic violence victim.
And yeah, she's a
The
sweetheart.
recording of the call is used in both our training of new dispatchers and also new officers. The blood-curdling screams and pleading of this young woman on the phone leave an
So let's
indelible
do
impression on
4
everyone
and
who
1. I
hears
haven't
it.
cheated for myself in a bit.
The only
The reason I
silver
like
lining is
doing
that the murderer
cheating
was
for
the
yourself in seat 1 is the math is reversed, and it's kind of good to get used to that. So for this, my stack is just going to be 2 all the way up the
It was a
chain.
typical serene Sunday morning in the upstate New York Sheriff's Office.
There's our prep shuffle.
Center I worked at.
So here's 2 under
It's in
3.
New York. I mean, way upstate.
Here's 2 under 2.
The Adirondack Mountains, streams,
2 under
beautiful
1.
lakes, and people from Long Island in their summer homes.
And then 2 on top.
The most serious calls we ever took tended to be accidents on the interstate highway that
And
ran
then
like
fake
a
shuffle
country,
and cut just for the
or
lulz.
domestic disputes that never involved an arrest.
Oh,
May
shoot.
remind you that
Lost
this
a
is
card
all
somewhere. That
part
might have ruined my whole
of
stack. We'll see.
house fires. You get the idea.
Seat 2,
Sunday
seat
shift.
3, seat
Picture the
4, seat
serene
5, seat 6,
newspapers
seat
out on the
1, seat
console,
2, seat 3,
Dunkin'
seat
Donuts
4,
and
seat
Sylvia
5,
free
seat 6,
donuts
seat
and coffee
1.
to road patrol deputies, and us underpaid.
Oh, I forgot.
forgotten,
The
and
newly
overworked
minted phase 4.
dispatchers. 911
Alright,
rang,
so this is gonna be
and I was
4
so
and 2
bored
on
that I
top.
actually jumped on it, thinking it's probably a parking
Oh,
complaint
shoot, that's
about
5, damn.
church from a frequent flyer with nothing else to do. Nope.
Oh god, why can't I do 4?
Open line in the actual freaking middle of butt kiss nowhere.
4,
A minimum of 20 minutes response time for any unit,
2,
police, fire, or EMS. Instantly
seat
you know
2,
it's
seat
gonna be a tough
3,
call.
seat 4, seat
I heard an
5, seat
adult female in
6,
the
seat
background
1.
say, "Oh
That
my
was
God."
awful. Seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, seat 5, seat
She
6,
then
seat
picked up the
1. That
phone
was
and
better.
adds a desperate help before it sounded an awful lot like she dropped the phone again. Next thing I heard was a door of some description slamming. Then about 30 seconds later, a distant bang, like a firework or maybe a propane canister
Seat 2,
exploded.
seat 3, seat 4, seat
I
5,
dispatch
seat
all 3
6,
types
seat
of
1,
emergency
seat
units
2,
as per
seat
policy
3,
with
seat 4, seat
unconfirmed
5,
emergencies.
seat 1.
But I was 100% sure the house was on fire because of the burning cover. And then I heard, "Please help me," again, only very softly. Positive that the house was burning, I tried in vain to get a response
Seat
and
2, seat
kept asking if she was alone, get out,
3,
etc. All the
seat
while
4,
updating and expediting
seat
units on the
6,
radio.
1, seat...
First
oh,
volunteer fire chief arrived and reported no fire. So instantly I'm like, what's going on here? But the fire chief ran around the house checking for smoke, but instead he found a man in the backyard, motionless, and holding a gun. This is the day I found out that a 12-gauge shotgun fired point blank into the chest of a 30-year-old woman holding a phone sounds almost identical to the sound a screen door makes when it's slammed. I listened to the poor woman's last words as she died alone on her kitchen floor, and I also somehow managed to send a firefighter directly into a life-threatening situation. There's no academy course
Hey,
that
girly
exists
girl.
that can teach you how to deal with stuff like that. It took me a long time to stop equating a slamming screen door with
Come kiss me
gunfire.
first.
Try explaining that to your family and friends when one of them lets the screen door close a little too hard at Labor Day weekend. Anyway, the firefighter turned pale and ran. The guy turned the gun on himself instead, but didn't get it quite right and survived initially. The number of resources spent trying to save him before his inevitable death was ridiculous. But because I was also a volunteer EMT, I understood it. The medics on scene even got med flights to transfer him to a trauma center, but they couldn't save him. So I guess karma worked well that day.
What are you working on today?
Well, I just got done doing riffle stack and bottom deal exercises, and now I'm going to practice Royal Exchange, which is going to give me some practice on my Pharaoh
And I
shuffles.
remember I got a call from a woman who said her husband and son had gotten
Sadly to say, that kind of thing is way more common than you'd think, to the point where I'd even call it a run-of-the-mill domestic situation. In those types of situations, we're trained to send a minimum of 2 units, one to break up the fight, and another to gather up all the necessary statements. While they're on their way, I ask the woman what her husband and son are fighting over, whether this is regular behavior for them, and the whole time I can still
Okay.
hear them screaming and shouting in the background.
So the premise of this is,
Occasionally the door will slam, the voices
say,
get louder.
you know, people always tell me it must be easy for you to play poker. You're always dealing yourself royal flushes. And I say, well, I can prove that I can still win at poker playing your crappy cards, and I'll even let you play my cards. So it's a 4-handed game. We're deciding which seat of cards I'm going to play. So I'm going to play seat 2. Works for me. Now there always has to be a cut. That keeps things nice and fair.
She started to tell me how their son
Alright,
had been
so-
staying with him since his divorce the previous year.
And I do practice this the
I asked
hard
her how
way.
old her son is, and
So
she
you
says,
get the 9 there.
Now I'm instantly taken aback here. I had it in my head that the son was in his
9,
teenage
6.
years, as this is most commonly when the father-son clashes occur. She actually manages to
9,
calm
6,
down
7.
a little as she
Okay,
tells the
potential
story.
straight.
I begin to really feel for this family. The son had obviously
Oh,
had
9, 6,
some
7,
kind of nervous breakdown,
2. No.
leading to depression, and he'd barely even gone outside for the past few weeks.
9,
He
6, 7, 2
evidently wasn't
king.
dealing very well. Then right as things kind of calm down and the shouting in the background dies down, I just hear the woman groan
Alright,
out,
so let's see what I'm
"Oh
playing.
God, he's got a gun," in the
Oh,
middle
damn
of the
it.
sentence.
I
I keep
goofed.
asking her, "Ma'am, who has the gun? Tell me who has the gun." And she
Ah,
tells me she saw her husband walking down the hall
Dang
out
it.
to where the son was, and she'd seen his
oh, I
38
needed to cut off
revolver
way more
pointed
cards.
at
Okay,
his
never mind.
head.
We're trying that again.
And herein lies why dispatch can be so traumatic. I know something awful is about to happen. Once some people get going, there's no stopping them, so my priority here is to preserve human life as best I can until the actual marked units arrive on scene. In the calmest, most mechanical voice possible, I tell her to not try and get in the way, to find cover and stay put. The ideal place being a porcelain bathtub if the family owns one. You have no idea how many lives porcelain tubs have saved over the years. I had one coworker call them bathroom bunkers. When it's clear she understands my instructions, I radio into my police units and tell them to go full code 3, lights, sirens, door kicking mode, while telling my ambulance to stage nearby. This is standard practice to ensure that medical units aren't hurt. If we have an EMT go down into scene somewhere, God, that's a whole can of worms I don't even want to think about. When I get back to the call, it's almost totally quiet now. I ask the woman what's happening, and she tells me that she too can't hear anything, and that she even thought it might have calmed down once the
Okay.
son had seen his dad's gun.
Wait,
I
so
hear
if it's
her
seat
say,
2.
"Do you think I should check on them?" And I'm right in the
Yeah,
middle of
okay, so
telling
for
her to
seat
stay
2, I need to
put
cut
when
off 3.
bang,
So
I hear
that.
this horrible scream.
Why do I have a face-up
on the
queen?
phone, and all of a sudden the woman bursts into tears. I know the worst has happened, and
Is
all
that
I can
right?
do is inform
Yes,
my
okay.
officers that there have been shots fired at the scene.
So,
By
ooh,
this time,
an
they're
ace for
both
me.
on scene and grabbing their long guns from their trunks, and as they approach the house, they can hear both the dad yelling and
Ace
the son
jack,
groaning
okay,
in
ace jack
pain
of clubs, no
around
less.
the family garage.
Why do I have a face-up
They
3?
come around to the front of the garage where it was clear both men were, and notice that there's a small key bag, presumably
What
with a
the
code to
shit?
I
Why
get the
are
code
all
from
these
the wife
cards
and pass
face
the
up?
information to my officers, listening as they plug the code in before the distinct sound of the garage door raising can be heard. I can't even tell you how fast my heart was racing as I heard those doors slowly
4.
rising. Any second,
This is
I'm
driving me
expecting to hear a
nuts.
torrent of gunfire exchange between the shooter and the officer.
I'm literally gonna watch the stream
I was
later
convinced
and
someone
see
was
how
gonna
this
die
even
that
happened.
night, and I'm keyed up to send in another unit of EMTs, but there's nothing. Just silence. After what
So
felt
weird,
like forever,
but okay. Oh, I must
an
put one of the
officer
hands in
keys
face
and
up.
tells me that they
Alright,
have one
so
guy in custody and
I look at the
another
cards
in
I'm
there.
gonna play.
The shooter
Oh, and I
just
recite all
gave up
those
as soon as he saw
values,
the
then I
flash.
let you play those cards. It turns out to
Somehow
be
the son actually survived.
yours, and then I have the
His
royal
dad
flush.
was arrested for attempted murder. And unbelievably, the argument started because the dad wanted the son to move out. That's all. It was something so small and dumb, but it just escalated and escalated until a father had no problem turning a gun on his own flesh and blood. take the odd shift working the medical side of the 911 dispatch center. Since smartphones have been getting more and more sophisticated, I've heard it's much easier to pin down exact locations. And in the UK, they have this new 3-word system that brings EMTs
Okay,
right
going to
on top of
C4.
position.
This is where I
Should
cut
you
off
happen
only
to be
one.
stranded somewhere with no recognizable landmarks. I'm almost certain a system such as this is about to be implemented in certain states.
Boom,
Back
and
in
then
2006,
got the diamond.
when all anyone
Let's see, we
had
have the
was
king of
flip phones
clubs.
and whatnot, finding out exactly where an injured party was could prove extremely
Ooh,
difficult.
king of clubs, king of diamonds,
From
working
what I
off a
understand,
pair.
These days, you can ping a location to within a few feet
King
where a
clubs,
call is coming from.
king 10.
But back in the early 2000s, the area was ballooned
Ooh,
to
king
square
10
miles.
jack. I'm
South
looking
side
good.
and north side of the city, maybe a county,
King
but
10 jack deuce,
nothing
alright.
as accurate as the
So
tech
I'm
today.
playing these.
So, with that little
King,
bit of
king, 10
context
jack deuce,
established,
alright, let's see what
this
you're
is
playing.
by far the worst
Oh shit, you have the
911
pair of
call
kings.
I ever
But I
received.
have the royal flush, I win.
I got a call from a cell phone, presumably one of the aforementioned flip phones, and it was a younger girl telling me her mom had fallen and wouldn't wake up. Over the course of several questions, I established that not only has the mom apparently fallen down a flight of uncushioned wooden stairs, but that she didn't seem to have any vital signs whatsoever. This could have simply have been because her young daughter simply didn't know what she was looking for or had made a mistake when it came to her breathing or her pulse. But the really alarming thing, the little girl couldn't give us an exact address. And as much as I asked her things like, do you have any mail around to read the address off of? Nothing seemed to work. She couldn't find anything. She couldn't remember. And she was beginning to panic. And in a situation where every single second counts, she was burning valuable time. What's worse, all she could say about where she lived was that it's a farm. And given that pretty much all of my district was rural farmlands, her description didn't bring us any closer to saving her mom's life. Working through all the standard questioning, I got to asking how long it had been since her mom fell down the stairs. She told me her mom had fallen just after her favorite TV show had started, and doing the math, I figured out that she'd been down for 30 minutes at the very least. We're taught to remain completely professional in those situations. I mean, I had one regional dispatch trainer tell me, the more robotic you are, the better. The more detached you are, the more lives you'll save. But in that moment, hearing the mom had been out for like a half hour, I felt my heart sinking. It was like an ice block in my chest. It was the toughest time I've ever had trying to keep it together on a call. But as per my training, I just took a deep breath and
King of
tried to
diamonds?
mechanically work through the problem-solving techniques I've been taught. I'd asked her the street
King
name,
of clubs.
if there were any landmarks, if there was mail in the house, what she could see out of her front door.
King
But the
8.
only thing that landed was the landmarks thing. With the girl telling me that her
King
family
8
walked to and from church every Sunday. Walked.
King
So I
8
had to
2
be
ace, not
closer.
bad. Let's see what I'm
Seconds
playing.
later, my supervisor and law enforcement are
Yeah,
scouring
king
the
8 2
outside
ace. Let's
area,
see what you're playing.
marking off
You're
every
playing the
single
king 8 2
church
ace,
within
and I have the
2
royal
miles
flush.
of farms.
Boom.
When they'd narrowed it down to a total number of 5 churches that could feasibly be walking distance for a family with small children, we dispatched a unit to each one with specific instructions to go in lights and sirens the whole way. This would give our younger caller a shot at hearing them approaching, so we could further coordinate
5, good.
But just keeping in mind,
I wanted to fail on
with
stream.
only 3 fire rescue vehicles, 2 ambulances, and
God
4
dang it.
police patrol cars to cover the entire area, tracking down this young girl's location meant we'd be stretching thin the entire time. By trying to save one life, we'd be risking the lives of others. It was a nerve-wracking risk, but one we were willing to take. Thankfully, after
Then we have
getting
to
some
zero
more
this
panic
last one.
calls going out over the radios, a couple of sheriff's
Nope.
deputies and a handful of highway patrol officers volunteered themselves to join the search effort.
God dang it.
Bearing in mind that all this had happened, and we were no more than about 15 minutes into the call. I've never seen or heard of such a large-scale response in our county. Not on my watch, anyway. I mean, we really
1
did go into
2
overdrive
3
as soon as all the
4
circumstances
5
called for evidence.
ace 1 2.
I remember the 15-minute mark because this is about the time we learned that the phone she was using was a cordless one, and the family kept the phone at the bottom of the stairs, just feet away from the front door. This obviously meant
No.
that she'd be able to walk outside, look
Where's
for
my tab?
lights, and listen for sirens. A major breakthrough on
There's
her
no way I
efforts
messed
to
up
locate
that
her.
bad. Where's the
There was some
what?
added suspense when it seemed
Oh,
like
because
she
I
might not
ran
have
it
been
under
able to
3.
open
I only
the door.
stacked for 4 cards. I'm dumb.
God, and I heard her say, I got it. Then, it was just a matter of waiting, and hoping she'd heard the sirens in time. I know it's a huge cliche to say that minutes seem like hours or whatever, but I'd never really understood that whole time is elastic concept until then. It really did seem like forever before she heard our sirens, but there was no time to celebrate when she did. We were still faced with the task of figuring out which of our emergency vehicles we could hear. Law enforcement thought fast and had me telling each responder to stop and turn off their sirens before one by one we had them turn them back on so we could determine which one was the closest to her. It turned out to be one of the fire rigs, so we sent everybody to their position and then we spread out to cover the general area, all with their sirens on again.
Mm.
Eventually, one of the state
You're
troopers
smart.
pulled into our street and the girl could see him coming.
What makes you say that?
When the rest of the dispatch center heard me saying, "Okay, run to the fire truck, honey. Go wave to the fire truck." There was a bunch of silent celebration as people punched the air or buried their heads in their hands in relief. As the little girl met the fire truck, the driver was able to relay his position to us, and they signaled that her job was essentially done. I stayed on the line while EMTs were guided onto the property, and once they'd arrived, it was adios from us, and all we could do was hope the mom was okay. Well, it was more like pray by that point, as for all we knew, she had been flatlined for just going on about an hour. However, we heard later that by the time the medical guys got there, the mom was actually awake. She was incredibly disoriented as
You're
there was
dumb or
clearly
you're
something
done.
horribly wrong
Oh.
with her, but she was alive.
I just made a really simple mistake.
We
Yeah,
later found out that she
I
had
know I'm
broken
smart.
her back. An absolutely horrific break too, and one that might take her more than a year to recover from. The young girl was given a little reward from the police department for her bravery in the call, as she kept calm and did everything we told her to do. I can't say it was anything more than a token, something to take the edge off the traumatic event she'd gone through, but what else can you do? I suppose this has something of a happy ending, though. The mother recovered with no brain or nerve damage, but the recovery process in itself sounded almost as bad as the injury. I suppose the reason I'm telling you all this is to serve a reminder for something very, very important. As someone who's worked as an emergency dispatcher, I really can't stress how important it is for
Oh yeah, no, I know I'm
teach their kids
smart.
the following
Smarter
things.
than most, dumber than some.
Teach
I'll
them
take
their
that.
first and last names. 2. Get them to learn their home phone number off by heart. 3. Teach them how to make a 911 call, and that's all attached to that. 4. Teach them their home address and zip code. This is by far the most important one. I've lost count of the number of times when this information would have literally saved a life, or at least prevented life-changing damage to health or property. So please, you're not just sparing some 911 dispatchers' nerves, you might have been saving your own life, or those of your family members. Turn it into a game somehow. Heck, get creative, turn it into a song. Please, teach your kids their home address and teach them how to ask for police, ambulance, or fire.
Now, this happened in my senior year of high school when I was 17 years old, about to turn 18. I'm a 5'3", 90-pound female who, from a very early age, has been lusted over by much older men. So by 17 years old, I had been experiencing it for 6 years now. So by that age, I was already very used to the really creepy gazes that I would randomly receive out in public. But Mr. B, he always gave me more than just a gaze. Though I moved around often and went to very
Okay, we are gonna
different
call it
schools,
there, kids.
Mr. B was the first
Thanks
to
everybody who
tell me
tuned in.
on
I'll
a
catch you
daily
guys
basis.
tomorrow.